as we have said before, please take your litter with you and dispose of to keep this beautiful place very clean. Do we have our ladies? Yes. Yes, 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 yes. So we are having this session, it's a book launch, The Sari of Surya Vilas, by the lovely Vayu Naidu and released by Chitra, Banerjee, Divakaruni. So please make them feel very, very welcome. We'll just get them set up with some microphones as well. And there will also be a book signing after this event as well.
If this doesn't work, then I use that. I'll keep it off now. Well, it is my great pleasure and honor to be unveiling this book and launching it. The Sari of Surya Vilas by Vayu Naidu. And thanks to everyone for waiting patiently while we got the mic situation fixed. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this book and about Vayu, and then I'm going to turn it over to her so she can speak about a project that she obviously knows better than anyone. Book starts in 1909. Alarmelu is 9 years old when her mother dies, leaving her in Surya Vilas, the family home, which is now a world of spinster aunts and men. When she discovers that her mother's wedding sari, an heirloom passed from mother to daughter, is missing, Alarmelu must track it down without revealing that it was stolen by a family member. Tracing the sari sends her into a world never mentioned in genteel company of exotic Russian dancers and unacknowledged mistresses. But puberty and the changing urban landscape of Madras make Alarmelu challenge the complacent silences of family and British rule alike. The novel goes back into the time of the mutiny, 1857. Lots and lots of things will happen that are exciting, and I certainly hope you will pick this book up because it is the poignant story of a woman finding her voice against the backdrop of family secrets. And I think it will appeal to many strands of your personality. Just a little bit about Vayu over here. She is a novelist, and she's also a performance storyteller of oral traditions. And her background, her doctoral work has brought out the transposition of cultural and performance nuances through reimaginings of Indian epics and world myths in English. Her previous novel, titled Sita's Ascent, is about the banishment of Sita, and I found that very interesting because I am now researching a novel on Sita myself. So let's give a big hand to Vayu. Congratulations on this very happy, exciting moment. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hello, Jaipur, and hello, Jaipur Literature Festival. I want to say thank you to everyone for sitting through here and to such a gracious welcome to this book by Chitra and opening it into the world of letters. So thank you so much for your patience. I want to just share with you, Chitra and I were talking about it backstage, that's my only term of reference of sitting in green rooms, about what made me write this novel. I am fascinated by story, and there are many stories that get unwritten, and there are many stories told through weaving, and that's across the world and all its cultures. There are many stories that are said through praise songs. And I just want to share with you a particular story that triggered it off. In a certain village, there was, well, fortunately, storytelling is not politically correct, so it was a village idiot. And he was quite a dashing chap and wore fine clothes, and he got married to a very cultured woman who wanted to make sure that he got cultured by listening to a great epic that night. So he went to the seating of the storytelling in the temple, but he was so tired that he fell off to sleep. And the storyteller came and told a great big story, and in the morning the priest handed out laddus to everybody. He ate the laddu, he went home, and when his wife asked, well, how did you like the story that you heard? And he said, oh, it was very sweet. And she said, wow, you really understand the nuances of epic. And so on it went when he heard the neighbors discussing the first part of the story, the birth of the hero, and how he gets married to this wonderful 16-year-old girl, and he breaks a bow. He travels to his new kingdom. I think you're knowing which surprise epic this must be, which is part of our national consciousness, and so on and so forth. And I suddenly realized that there are so many stories that remain hidden in cloth and weaving and in tapestry. And I got so excited by a particular group who were called the Merchant Warriors, who used to weave the story of Shakti or Aman as temple tapestries. But during the East India Company's trade in India, in the southern part, some of the motifs, like the Rudraksh or the temple design, was considered incendiary. It was giving sort of little sub-signs of an identity that could be considered raising a different kind of nationhood. So the looms were burned, but many weavers continued weaving. And that sort of thing really fascinated me, that here are these people silently going on with their work and actually giving up their life. So there is a moment in the novel that deals with that. It switches between third person in 1909 and with the first person in the 1857. So it's not all dark, bleak, and tragic. It's got fire, blood, and passion as well. So if I may, could I just read a very small extract from it?
I'm sure the audience would really like to hear it. And not only to bring the words alive, but to hear it in the writer's voice is always special.
Thank you for this warm, warm welcome. Okay, so we're in 1909, and it's Madras, and it's this first encounter of this 9-year-old girl, Alarmelu, watching how this sari that was woven for her great-grandmother, worn by her grandmother, passed on to her mother, which would indeed come on to her, is being taken away. The hours billowed into late afternoon. The family have just gone on a picnic to Elliott's Beach, and everyone was in a terrific mood, including Dharma. The biryani was excellent. There was just one instance where Alarmelu, the 9-year-old, and Kanna, her little companion, cried as Dharma teased them that it wasn't goat meat they were relishing in the biryani, but the peacock from the garden. He had to work hard at the insistence of Chellama, Alarmelu's mother, to admit to the girls that he lied. The prickly moment was finally soothed by more candy floss, more singing and dancing, till the girls dried their tears and felt the salt in their mouth from the sea. They concluded that the beach was a body and the sea its tears. When they returned to Surya Vilas, the customary tea had to be drunk in the library upstairs with the 2 sisters and the sister-in-law. Chellama heard them recounting with hilarity all that had happened. When it was her turn, she looked up with a full smile from a sari border she was examining. Why can't these people darn the saris the way they used to? I think you need to wear smoother anklets. I know, Gauri, but that day with the puja, I had to wear the ruby-studded ones. The stones in the left anklet were coming out of the setting. That's what started ripping the threads as I walked. Chellama made her case. Is that your wedding sari? Dharma, her younger brother-in-law, gazed longingly at the subtle gold on the border and across the pomegranate pink body of the sari. It was hand-woven naturally, but it had the perfect design. I know a very good weaver who will make it good as new, he smiled to himself. How soon can it be done? Chellama's urgency could be felt in the room. Chellamani, for you time should be no concern. You see, it is the wedding sari and it has to be blessed again at the harvest pongal. Consider it done, Dharma said as he looked cheerily at his sister-in-law and sisters. He licked his fingers free of the almond halwa that he'd washed down with the cardamom tea. He washed his hands ceremoniously, twirling each gold ring on his little ring and middle fingers. Then he took out his monogrammed handkerchief with a dancer's flourish and wiped the diamond, emerald, and rubies on each of the rings, touching the corners of his lips. Alarmelu saw the ancestral pomegranate pink silk sari with the sunset orange border interwoven with gold slide from her mother's arms into Dharma's hands. Its weight was sumptuous. She could smell its fragrance of turmeric, frankincense, and sandalwood. A few dried tulsi leaves fell from the inner folds of the pallu. She felt the cool smoothness of the satin blouse around her mother's waist and the smell of sandalwood on the moist skin of her belly. Her mother's butter-soft hands touched the back of her neck as the sari slid away. She felt the fingertips of her father's sisters adjusting her plaits on either side of her head. Alarmelu saw the soft brown eyes of her father's youngest brother resting on the sari as the clock chimed 7 that evening. I'm just going to read you a little bit from the 1857 moment of the young girl who becomes a governess in England. Mr. Whippet was visiting for tea. I had been in his charge all the way from India while being brought to Lord and Lady Grace's home in England. My position as governess there came with a great many letters of recommendation from the convent in Calcutta, where I had been placed under care. Mr. Whippet, who was associated with all sorts endeavoring to do good to humanity, saw me there. He decided that once my English was as good spoken as it was written, then the time would be right in the year of our Lord, 1866, to arrive on the shores of civilization where young orphaned women could make a living through learning and serving. It was clear I was not going to be made a nun. I did not possess the requisite loyalty to a singular vision of God. While boarding at the convent, each time we girls, mostly orphans, sat in St. Mary's Chapel, I looked at Jesus' mother and thought of Amman and prayed that she would look after all of humanity the way Jesus' mother cared over him. Soon, Mother Mary and Amman became one for me, and I felt happy. Every time we were told to repeat the rosary, I would say the Hail Mary out loud and continue to repeat in my mind, "Oh Mariamman, oh Karimariamman, oh Poniamman, oh Gangaman." That was fine. I had two worlds that kept me safe, and no one got hurt. The problem was when I fell ill and had very high fever. I was delirious and kept repeating, "Amman, oh Amman," while clutching my rosary. This was overheard and reported. My belongings were searched, and the small black stone statue of Amman that woman had given me was confiscated and exorcised. I was made to repent for being ungrateful to the kindness and compassion shown to me by the church and convent, as I had evidently harbored faith in idol worship secretly. I learned so many words at that time, and sin was one of them.
Thank you. So we're running late because of the electricity, so I'll just end with one last question. What was particularly perhaps challenging for you as you wrote this book?
Inhabiting another historical time, and I think the experience of inhabiting another historical time can be done, but it's very important to keep the biases and the prejudices of our contemporary time, the way we look at a past. That was very challenging, because we can always say, "Oh, but why couldn't she be a more feisty woman at that particular moment?" But those were the challenges that women faced, and then you realize what, where we've evolved and come through.
And one really fun thing that happened as you were writing the book?
It was wonderful, because in the book there is a moment when the woman from the mutiny moment is given the task in her role as a governess in an English home to collect phrases from the colonies, and in her case particularly from Hindustani, from Urdu and Tamil. And this is all being built up for what used to be then known as the Philological Society of England, which then later becomes the Oxford English Dictionary. And while I was plodding through this, because it was very interesting historical detail, there was a lovely click which said, you can have all the etymological, all the linguistic paraphernalia, but to articulate the language of the heart clearly is, when you can get it right, is one of the most exciting things.
Thank you so much. And you're going to be doing book signing right after this.
I don't want to delay anyone. Maybe nobody wants to buy a book, but it would be lovely if you did. And most importantly, read it. But thank you, Chitra. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Once again, congratulations.
Thank you.